Yo, welcome to another episode of the Blue Bloods College Game Time podcast. It's Trey Smith.
It's Brandon Holmes. Once again, welcome to Blue Bloods College Game Time podcast, a podcast for the fans, by the fans. It was a little different weekend for us. No college football, not a ton. We had a little college football, but this was a different weekend for us. But college basketball is in full effect, man.
Oh, we had some college hoops rolling. But before I get into our little blue blood double dribble for this week's episode, how about our YouTube this past week? Come on.
Soccer clap.
Shout out all of our YouTube subscribers who may be watching this video right now. Thank you for the watches and the views and the engagement and the comments and the subscribes on all of our sidebar videos. Yeah. Obviously, this is our podcast right here. You're going to get a full, just probably 45 to an hour long, just discussion about college sports, like B. Holmes just said, for the fans, by the fans. But we've got sidebar videos that we drop every single day. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please hit subscribe.
Come on.
Join the party. It's college sports content every day, plus a podcast. It's everything. If you're just listening right now on one of our platforms like iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, go check out our YouTube channel. There's a lot of other, I guess I could call bonus content that doesn't quite make it to the actual podcast. Yep. So thank you. We're on all socials. If you didn't already know that, you probably see it on somewhere on this graphic on this screen. Blue Bloods CGT on everything.
Yeah, come find us.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. And then obviously you can follow me at It's Trey Smith, B Holmes at Real B Holmes right here below our little ugly mugs here.
Oh, man,
but let's talk about some college hoops real quick.
I got to clear that. I'm not ugly. I'm a good looking man.
Fair enough. So, viral clip. I'm going to start with this. College hoops, blue blood double dribble, man. Viral clip. A D3 school that nobody knew about or cared about, St. John Fisher.
Let's go.
Okay. A D3 player, a 7-foot, 360-pound monster named Connor Willams that nobody knew about and nobody cared about, who this week will probably sign a lucrative NIL deal with Barstool Sports.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of one clip that went viral. If you haven't seen it, go to my Twitter page right now. It is the greatest thing ever. Like, he's working his way up the floor, crosses half court, trips over his own feet.
Yes.
Like, he just trips over his own feet. All 7 foot, 360 pounds of him, hits the court, gets up, slowly but surely, catches a pass at the high post, turns and faces, and then drops a dime to his teammate cutting back door. Boom for the slam and one. Looking like Chris Webber. All a 7 foot, 360 pound version of him, just dime from the high post. So to me, that was one of the greatest parts of the college hoops weekend. But seriously, getting to some of the games, there was a controversial finish late Saturday night. Yep. Bama over Houston. There was a controversial call on a goaltend on the last possession of the game. Houston's ball, missed a shot, went on the tip in. Okay. And I believe it was Reggie Chaney that went for the tip in, who was a transfer from the University of Arkansas, who actually played high school ball. I coached against him when he was a middle school player, and then he was a part of the high school program his first 2 years of high school before he transferred out. But he went for the tip in, and you have to go watch it yourself. Yeah. It's all over Twitter. It's all over social media. Those of you, if you're watching this or listening, but the Houston player blocked the tip in, but the call is that it was over
the rim.
It was over the rim, and what'd you say?
Over the cylinder.
Yes, it was over the cylinder. So I don't know. I've watched it a couple times. I did see one picture, like a still shot, that definitely looked like it was goaltending. But when you're watching it in real time, it's really kind of a 50-50 call. Mm-hmm. And if Alabama's anywhere involved with a 50-50 call, whether it's football or basketball,
they're going to get it 90% of the time.
But that was a big game. It was a number 9 versus number 14, and it was at Bama. It could have been a huge win for Houston, but anyways, take it how you will. I'm not a big blame the officials guy, and I don't think that call was reviewable.
No, I don't think so.
So it was a bang bang play, judgment call, just part of it. And then another game, OU pile drived my poor Razorbacks, my number 12, formerly undefeated Razorbacks. I have a whole separate video about that. If you haven't seen it, you can go watch it. I'm not going to talk too much about the game, but what I will say is that I actually dropped a preview video for that game.
You did.
And a post-game video. Yeah. And in that preview video, I did not anticipate the game being a blowout like it ended up being.
Right. No, you didn't.
But I did talk about Porter Mosher, the head coach for the OU, and how he might attack Arkansas and where I saw some potential concerns there on the Arkansas side of things and how would the chess match go.
Right.
And it actually kind of went that way if you watch that video. The thing I was not anticipating was that OU was going to shoot 59% from 3. Yeah, you heard that right. And if you're not a big basketball guy and you're like, what does that mean? That would be like a quarterback completing 90% of his passes in the game, and he threw 30 passes.
Right.
Completed 90% of them. So that's kind of the equivalent to shooting, near 60% from 3 for the entire game as a team.
Right.
And then you factor in the fact that Arkansas, staying true to form, how they've been shooting all season, shot 29%. So they actually won the extra possessions battle, Arkansas did. But when you get outshot by 30%,
you're gonna
as a team, you don't stand a chance. Yeah. I mean, unless you would have to win the extra possession battle by like plus 20,
right?
Just to give yourself a chance. And they were only plus 5. But anyways, that was another upset. Number 12 Arkansas takes their first loss of the season. And I'm telling you, OU, I've said this in multiple videos, like they're going to be a team to watch come March.
No, you did.
They suffered a very disappointing loss earlier this week last week to Butler. A few days before they played Arkansas, they had a second half collapse, gave up a 24-8 run, and ended up losing the game in overtime. And they came out Saturday and just dominated. It was on a neutral site. It was in Tulsa. Arkansas closed the gap a little bit, made a comeback, cut it to I think 6. But even when it was cut to 6, still felt like you're down 20.
Yeah.
And then another big upset over the weekend was Notre Dame over number 10 Kentucky.
Thank God.
As an Arkansas fan, when we lose in a basketball game, you always feel a little bit better when you see that Kentucky also lost. So Kentucky suffered a loss to Notre Dame. And then, of course, the big matchup on Sunday, Baylor versus Villanova. That's going to be for the number 1 spot because, well, if Baylor wins, I know obviously by the time you're watching this, it's already been decided, but Baylor is looking to become the number 1 spot, be the number 1 ranked team because Purdue, another big story from the college hoops week, they were upset by Rutgers early in the week on a
buzzer beater,
just near half-court prayer buzzer beater. Purdue takes the lead. Rutgers has 0 timeouts. Get the ball in. 2-3 dribbles, get across half court, and throws up a prayer.
It's beautiful.
Boom. And that shot, B. Holmes, was made by Ron Harper Jr.,
yes, sir,
who is the son of 5-time NBA champion Ron Harper. Those of you listening or watching might remember him from playing on the second three-peat team of the Chicago Bulls, the one with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. And then I believe he also won his other 2 with the Lakers, with the Shaq and Kobe team. I think he was a part of either their first 2 or their second 2 with their three-peat. So
second 2.
There's your Blue Bloods double dribble. B. Holmes, get us into Army Navy.
Yeah, man. Yesterday, it was a slow day in college football. We only had one day. It felt one game. Excuse me, not one day. I don't want the people to DM me about how I misspeak. That's become a common thing.
Hey, we're for the fans, by the fans, man.
Fans DM me like, "Hey, man, you said this wrong." I'm like, I'm sorry. Did you listen to 99% of the other things that I said that were right? But it was a slow day, man. It was. I had a little FOMO, because I'm so used to, for 14 weeks now, it's just been college football, and we're entering into that phase where you're already starting to think about spring ball. You're like, okay, man, what recruiting. Yeah. Like, let's get into some of that. But Army Navy, I love that game. Now, last year was played or 2 years ago, excuse me, before the pandemic, it was played in Philadelphia, where I live, and it's such a great. I didn't appreciate the game until it was in the city that I lived in. Because you see it on TV and you're like, oh, that's cool. But when you're in the city that it's played, and it returns back to Philly next year, to see how many people come for that game, it's like it's a whole thing. Like, I would equate it to, it almost has like this Rose Bowl feel. It's like the two of the oldest institutions in college football. It's Army, Navy. They play off the patriotism. You got a lot of veterans that come in for the game. You got a lot of high-ranking profile people who have attended West Point or who have gone down to Annapolis. And it's a cool feel. And one of my little young guys, man, he's like a young brother to me. He played football at West Point for a little bit, and it's just like a cool. It's one of those things you have to experience, I think, to appreciate. Like, you can watch it as a fan on TV, and you're like, oh, that's cool, I'll watch it because the game on. But when you're, like, around it, you feel the energy that's in the city. Like, Philadelphia felt so alive during that game, and it's already a lively city. But it was cool. But this year's game was actually really interesting because Navy, they're not going bowling this year. They had only won 3 games, and Army won 8, which has been huge for them. Like, the Black Knights, if you look over them the last 2 to 3 years, they've been a pretty solid team.
Yes.
They're going to win 8. It's not shocking to see them win 8 football games. I think it was like
double digits.
I think 3 years ago, they're an overtime loss away from OU from going undefeated. Like, if they capitalize off that, there's no telling what happens with that West Point team. And so but it's always good. They played at MetLife Stadium. It's like the battle of 2 old school offenses. And this is what I'll say about that game, because most people probably don't look at it because you're not going to go spread. There's no veer and shoot. There's no air raid. It's just straight triple option football. But man, those boys was laying the wood yesterday. Like, if you just like good pad popping, hard hitting football, that was a game to watch. Like, I watched the entire game and I was like, yo, this is a slugfest. And Navy ends up winning that game off a trick play. They end up winning off a fake punt that converts on 4th down. Well, the crazy part is the upback who gets the ball didn't even know he was getting it. Like, he said in a post-game interview, he's like, yeah, I had no clue the ball was coming. And if you watch the replay, you can tell it catches him off guard. Because I remember when I first watched, I was like, it doesn't look like he's prepared for that. Like, normally when the trick play is coming. But it was cool because he was the Navy captain, and I think he was the captain of captains. So at Navy, the Naval Academy, there's like the captain of the football team, captain of the basketball team, whatever. But then there's the captain of captains, and that person's the captain over all sports. And I think he's a senior. So I think it was just what an awesome way to go out. You convert the trick play to make that happen. Navy upsets Army. And I think the cool part of that game, though, is, and I said it in another video I dropped on YouTube, on our channel, so make sure you subscribe and check it out. It's Navy Army is a representation to me of what we've always wanted college football to be. Now, I'm a fan of kids getting the bag. I'm going to say that every time. Former college athlete, I believe in kids getting the bag. If you're going to make billions of dollars off kids, they deserve to get the bag. But it almost gives me like glorified Friday Night Lights feel. These kids aren't going to go to the league 9 times out of 10. 99.9% of the kids that go to the Naval Academy or go to West Point or go to the Air Force Academy, they're not there because they might think they're going to the league, but chances are they're not going to the league. Like, they're there for the love of the game. They're there for the love of the game, and they're there for pride. They're playing for the guy next to them. And being a former military guy, it's there's this like unique bond you have with guys that you go through the suck with. That's what they call it, going through the suck. And to see like teams of guys that have gone through the suck together, that are like, I think that doesn't embody team more than any other thing in the country. Like, the military is beautiful. Like, this isn't a political thing, but the military is beautiful to me because it's the one place I believe in the country you can take black, white, Latino, whoever, Christian, Catholic, like whoever, you put everybody, rich, poor, all in one group of guys, and you come out of that thing in 12 weeks, like, I'm willing to take a bullet for this person next to me. And it's so cool to, like, be a part. Like, I remember leaving boot camp. Like, boot camp is the craziest thing. Listen, somebody needs to figure out how to implement boot camp strategy into corporate America, because the amount of unification you get out of that. And so to see that on a football field, like, maybe because I've been a part of it, because I know what that feels like, it raises the intensity for that game for me, because it's really, nobody embodies, I'm doing this for my brother, like the military. Nobody embodies, I'm watching my six, this guy's watching my six, like the military. And so to see this two group of, like, men, the future leaders of America, come in and are like, we're about to play a slugfest football game, and I thought it was great. And so it was a low scoring game. So if you bet the under, always bet the under on that game. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna win if you bet the under. But it was a great game, man. I love the cadets from both academies, all the stuff that comes with it. They actually have a really strong tradition. So I encourage anybody, next time that comes on next year, watch that game. Like, I think you'll be thoroughly surprised by how much you enjoy everything that comes with it. Plus, the jerseys are dope, though. I don't know if you saw the jerseys from yesterday. The jerseys are clean. So, the Army-Navy game, great game. There's not a ton of highlights out of it. It was really the triple option versus the triple option, a bunch of heavy hitting. But to see these young guys that you're like, these are the guys that are going to lead in every level, man, in our country, whether it's politics, whether it's the military, whether it's Fortune 500 companies that are just playing for the love. Like, you go to those institutions going, I'm doing this because I love the game. Most kids that go to any other institutions, like, I'm doing this to try to get to the league. Those kids that are going to these academies are like, I do this for the love of the game. I do it for the love of the game. So,
and on that, for me, like, I'm a young dude, but, like, I'm an old school fan.
Right.
Not like get off my lawn old school, but old school in the terms of, like, I still like old Southwest Conference matchups. Right. I like it when an old Big 8 team faces off with a former Big 8 rival, like a Nebraska, Colorado. I'm gonna watch that because it takes me back to what I grew up on. And so watching two teams, triple option versus triple option, like, I'm all in on that. I'm not saying I want to watch that every single week, but that one weekend, Army-Navy, I'm all in on it. And I want to plug this real quick, B. Holmes. We've actually got a UTSA player, Miles Benning, an interview that we'll be releasing later this week with Miles, who's coming off a conference championship, getting ready to go into bowl prep this week. He started his playing career at Navy.
Yep.
And we're going to get him talking about what that was like and what that Army-Navy experience was. So be on the lookout for that. We will be releasing that later this week. It'll be a great one, but it'll be on our Game Time interviews playlist. So, well, that was the only game.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only college football action we had over the weekend, was it? We had a little bit, just a little tiny award that goes out every year to the best player or just the best stat line. I don't know if the Heisman goes to the best player or the best stat line anymore. I have a couple things on this, but B. Holmes, what were your thoughts from the surprise, Bryce Young winning the Heisman Award?
I mean, I wish we could have saved ourselves a whole ceremony for it. Like, I knew who was going to get it. It's Bryce Young. Bryce Young is going to get it. So shout out to Alabama fans. Y'all have been blowing me up for like 2 weeks because y'all haven't really watched the video that I posted. Y'all, like, this is my thing about Alabama fans. I don't care. We're going to drop another video about Alabama. Alabama fans are annoying. So I make this whole video about Alabama, right? You've seen the video. A lot of people who listen have seen the video. Objectively, if you watch the video, I actually give Alabama a lot of kudos. I give them a lot of, I give them their flowers. I say Bryce Young is great. Only thing I say is I just don't feel like I feel like he didn't deserve the go to the Heisman ceremony. And if he did, I didn't feel like he should have won it. I felt like it should have been a defensive, if any year had it, this could have been a defensive heavy Heisman moment. I believe Anderson from Alabama, I believe he could have won it. Now, obviously, I'm going to root for my guy, Aiden, but I believe Anderson, I mean, what he did this year was incredible. If he was coming out this year, he would probably be he'd be one of the top 2 picks in the draft, for sure. I believe Jordan Davis from Georgia should be there. I believe Aiden Hutchinson should have been there. So how I feel about, I mean, I knew Bryce Young was going to win. I love it. I love seeing, I always say it, and some guy was like, the moment he says this, I just turned off the video. I always enjoy to see a brother do well, a black man, an African-American male do well and get the most prestigious award in college football at the number one spot on the field. I will never be mad about it. I will never complain about that. I think that is amazing because of the time. Like, I grew up in an era, and I'm gonna get off my soap. I'm not getting on my soapbox, but I grew up in an era where it was like the only black quarterback I ever saw was Steve McNair, and then Randall Cunningham. Like, Warren Moon was like an afterthought, for me, like, coming up, and then Mike Vick came and it changed the game for us. But like, I remember people saying like black people don't play quarterback. So whenever I see a young black male playing quarterback and win, hey, I'm rooting for it. But to go back to the Heisman ceremony for it, I don't like that it's become a stat line award. It's supposed to be for the most outstanding football player in the country. And
correct.
If you're being objective, I'm not saying Bryce Young isn't great, Bama fans. He's great. He's going to be the number one overall pick next year when he decides to come out, because he's coming out next year. What I'm saying is, though, objectively, I think there's some better players out there that mean more to their team. And this is what I'll say about that. I believe if you take Bryce Young off of Bama, Bama still is Bama.
Fair.
I believe if you take Will Anderson off of Bama, Bama's still Bama. I think they still win. I think they're still in the same position they're in.
Fair.
I think if you take Kenny Pickett off of Pitt, they're not that.
They're not going to New Year's 6.
They're not going to New Year's 6. I think if you take C.J. Stroud off Ohio State, they're still Ohio State. They would have put another quarterback back there who, if you're throwing at 3 first-round wide receivers and probably a future first-round running back, it's really not that hard. I believe, and this is as a Michigan fan, I'm being objective, if you take Aiden Hutchinson off that defense, we're not where we are. I'm just going to be objective. Like, we're not where we are. He's the heartbeat of that team. So that's my beef with the Heisman. I'm like, it's become a stat line award versus, like, that's how I would look at the criteria if I'm a voter. If I was a voter. If I remove this guy off the team, does the team still do what the team did?
I would also go as far as to throw Jordan Davis in that conversation as well. Where does that defense perform? Now, I know all our memory right now is just Alabama exposing them, right, in the SEC championship. But if you can get away from that and just look over the course of the season, if you pull Jordan Davis off that defense, they're still going to be one of the top defenses because they're just loaded with talent.
Right.
But when you remove that anchor and how much he's able to disrupt things, or how much he disrupted all season until the SEC championship, you could make that same argument for the value he adds. And I would even say, as it pertains to Bryce Young, Will Anderson, I think Bryce Young, I'm on the flip side as you. I say he deserves to be there because I think if you pull Bryce Young off of that Bama team, unless Mac Jones 2.0 is sitting there waiting in the wings, I'm not so sure they beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I'm not so sure they get past Florida or Auburn, right? Yeah. Some of those closer games they had this year, even Arkansas, that was a close game. Whereas I think Will Anderson, he had probably the most impressive stat line for a defensive player in the country. But to your point, if you pull him off that defense, do they win or lose more or less games? I don't know. If you pull Bryce Young off that team,
that's true.
I think they do.
I'll give you that.
Whereas to your point about Hutch with Michigan, no, they don't win as many games as they win if he's not playing.
True.
They just don't. I don't care what the stat line says. Stat line doesn't always equate to impact.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand. And I think that's what was starting to bother me about all the comments you're getting on that Alabama video from people that either A, weren't watching it, or they got too emotional while they were watching it and missed what you were trying to say. Because they're trying to call you out like you weren't making a grounded point. You literally just took 2.5 minutes and I don't see how you could have been any more clear or like objective in the point you're trying to make, which I agree with for the most part. obviously I still would put Bryce Young there. I think what Bryce Young did to that Georgia defense, and this is part of my bias towards how enamored I am by that Georgia defense, and he just exposed them.
God, he sliced them. It was bad.
And I'm going, like, to me, that was his Heisman moment.
Yeah.
Not the 97-yard drive against Auburn. Not that wasn't amazing, but we've seen that this year.
Right.
KJ Jefferson for Arkansas did it twice in SEC play.
Right.
Okay, one of them against Mississippi State and one of them against Ole Miss. Now, the Ole Miss we went for 2 and lost, but Mississippi State took them down. I mean, and then there's other quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett, like other quarterbacks have done that this year, right? But what he did to Georgia, nobody in the country has done. Nobody. So that's why I feel Bryce Young deserves. I still would have loved to have seen a defensive player get it, and I still wouldn't have even had a problem if Will Anderson would have been there. Yeah. They would have just had 5 or send him there over C.J. Stroud. I mean, you talk about being surrounded by 5-star talent. Now, and then I was looking at the final rankings. You had Kenneth Walker, the 3rd on there. You could make the same argument for his value. If he's not on that Michigan State team, they may very well be 6-6.
They win 6 games without Kenneth.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 6-6 team. I see Matt Corral's on there. He finished overall in 7th. You know what? Let me say something about Matt Corral. Okay, because we are starting to get some no, and he's one of them that I'm talking to, but we are starting to get some Ole Miss viewers just based off some of the videos you've dropped. In fact, you put one about Arch Manning and Kiffin teeing up, possibly bringing T. Martin into the Ole Miss staff. And so we've kind of gotten our Ole Miss following has expanded a little bit beyond just our boy Tommy, but shout out to Tommy. I just want to clarify because I don't feel like anything I've ever said about Matt Corral is hating. I literally have only asked one question, which was this, B. Holmes. Does his game translate to the NFL? Yeah. And let me give you a player comp to justify what I'm saying, that if you think this is hating, like, you're an idiot, because this is not, I mean, this is actually very complimentary of who I'm about to use as his player comp.
Okay.
Matt Corral. Let me preface it with this. He's not as fast as this guy, which is a big difference. Now, he can still make plays with his legs like this guy I'm about to say did. He's just not near as fast. Okay. He doesn't have the home run breakaway like this guy I'm about to mention. Matt Corral plays the game very similar as a collegiate player to RG3. They play in similar systems, really kind of the same system. They've got cannons. They can make plays with their legs, whereas RG3 was a little bit more of a home run hitter, but he was like
he's a world-class Olympic sprinter.
I was about to say, he's a world-class sprinter.
He really was.
But if you look at their builds, how they're built, they have very similar frames. They throw the deep ball almost identical, which I'm not taking away from that. Like, Matt Corral throws a beautiful deep ball. RG3 threw a beautiful deep ball. And off of that play action, I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Running that veer and shoot offense, both of them are like magicians with it.
Yeah.
Now, the veer and shoot offense is a one read. I mean, it's very similar to the wishbone. It's just instead of lining up under center and reading a pitch man, you know, you're either taking a shot or you're reading. I mean, it's very similar. You can hear Art Briles talk about this. He's like, we're just running wishbone from the spread, you know, and we're just running it really fast. And so that's my player comp. Now, RG3 was the number 2 overall pick in the draft, went on to become Rookie of the Year. So what I mean when I say, does his game translate to the NFL, is RG3, the way he plays the game, he only lasted, 2 productive seasons?
Yeah, before he hurt himself.
Maybe?
Yeah.
And I love RG3. I loved watching him play. I wanted him to do really well. And I'm just saying, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I see when I watch Matt Corral. It's like, you can't take away from the talent the guy has. Right. I just wonder, okay, he's very like, I'm surprised he survived the season with how he plays. He takes a lot of hits. He uses his legs. Now, you can use that as a compliment. Like, it's because he plays the game like a warrior. Like, he puts his team on his back. I'm not taking away from any of that. I'm just saying, does all of that translate to the NFL? Because the only guy who's like that in the NFL right now is Lamar Jackson, but he's on a totally different totally different level as it pertains to his ability to make plays with his legs and run the ball. And then just, I mean, that's he's in a different class than RG3 and Matt Corral, in my opinion, as it pertains to that element of the game. So that's why I wonder. So feel free to disagree. Call me a hater. I really don't care, because like that, I believe, is a fair comparison and it's a fair question. Now, time will only tell, right? How he translate, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. I don't really have anything to say about that. I agree.
I mean, is that like, I'm not knocking the kid.
Like, I completely agree. Like, I don't have any, like, I don't even have a rebuttal for that. I think that's a good comparison. I'll be interested. I think it'll be system fit for Corral, and at the next level where he goes is super important. System is everything. Yeah, but yeah, and that's everybody though.
That's most. Yeah,
that's everybody.
That's most quarterbacks. There are things cerebrally you have to be able to do at that level, I think. And I don't know. Again,
we'll see.
Maybe it's there. Maybe it's. I just know that at the collegiate level, one of the things, same with RG3, things break down, and you're used to doing this.
Right.
Well, if you do this every single time in the NFL, you're taking years off your shelf life.
Yep.
That's my point.
No, valid.
So, anyways, what's next? Oh, do you have anything else on Heisman?
No, I just want to say shout out to Desmond Howard for throwing the shade that he threw at CJ Stroud. I don't know if you guys caught that. Aiden Hutchinson's a true leader, though, because he didn't get into the banter. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the clip, but Aiden was like, they asked him why he came back and how it felt. And he was like, it was a great thing. We came back. We wanted to beat Ohio State, which he was very vocal about at Big Ten Media Day. So it wasn't a shot. And everyone's like laughing, like, oh. And Tebow goes, good thing Kenny Pickett's in between to keep you guys separated. And Desmond goes, yeah, he could probably do a better job than your old lineman did. And, like, if you guys watch the game, like, it's because, man, Michigan's defense shredded Ohio State's O-line. And Aiden just kind of kept going on about the question. Like, he's a classy kid, so he didn't get into it. But I thought, man, Ohio, listen, this is it, and I'm done with this, and we can move on and finish our podcast. But Ohio State fans suck. They just suck. I'm not even going to try to be politically correct. They suck. They're so soft. Like, for 10 years straight, I'm sorry, I'm still gloating. I don't care if we lose. I don't care if I get blown out by Georgia. I don't care. For 10 years, I had to listen to them talk noise every day. Any chance they got to talk about Michigan, they did. The one time we beat them, like within 10 years, you guys could do this with a little bit more class. You guys don't know how to act like you've been here before. I'm like, oh, no. This is the same fan base that came to the big house with a Chase Winovich head in the noose bloody in 2018.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like this is the same fan base that talks so much trash about us. Oh, trust me. We getting these jokes off all year. We getting all this off of our chest because one of the most passionate Buckeye fans I know, and I won't say their name, but they talk trash all year. And this is where I was so mad about Buckeye fans this year. Because when Michigan, man, we take our L's. There's some toxic fans, but for the most part, we take our L's. We own it. It is what it is. Okay. Same way with Michigan State. You got to take it on the chin. Ohio, well, it's good that you guys finally, it's about time, first time in 10 years. Oh, no. Don't give me that attitude. You just need to sit there and take this. Don't tell me to act like I've been here before. And so, all the Ohio State fans last night on Twitter, this is why you guys can't win anything. You don't know how to handle it. I'm like, you guys are so arrogant. I remember Zeke when they won in 2015. Feed Zeke. He's doing this after everyone. Cordell, whatever my man's name is. He's the shotgun. He's talking trash. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Miss me with that. So it was great. I love that Desmond took the platform. And I love this. Jim Harbaugh making a public push for his player to be the number 1 overall pick. He said he was like, I think Aiden Hutchinson should be the number 1 overall pick this draft. But then using that platform to also highlight Hassan Haskins, who are running back, who I also believe if he's your typical flashy running back, he gets invited to that Heisman. He's just a low key under. Hassan he's on pace to break Derrick Henry's records for the most first downs rush by a running back in the season. He put 5 touchdowns up on Ohio. Like, he's had Heisman moments. He's just not the Blake Corum, our speedy back, would be. If the roles were flipped, if the stats were flipped, him and Blake gets an invite to the Heisman. I mean, but shout out to Jim, man, because we're coming in early signing day. I think that was a really good moment for him to show him, and he's done a really good job. But, hey, we knew who was going to win. I'm just glad that my guy got an invite. It looks good for Michigan, especially as we're hitting the recruiting trail. And so I'll take the win. I'll take the win for sure in that.
Well, and when you were talking about Hutch and the joke Desmond Howard made, I'm thinking about that clip. I think I probably retweeted on Twitter when it's like you see Hutch getting down in his stance and like he's
talking to the guy.
He's calling out the tackle and then just bull rushes him and puts him flat on his back on his way to the quarterback. And I'm going,
who was, by the way, that tackle was an All-American. He's a projected first-round draft pick. And Hutch ate his lunch. And the guy on the other side is a projected first-round draft. So they have 2 first-round tackles.
He's bulldozing Orlando Pace.
Yeah, they benched him, Trey. They benched the tackle. They benched him. That's what I'm saying. The Heisman, it's not just if you're objective. I'm not saying Hutchinson should have won, but if you're objective, you can go, I can see why I could give it to him. I mean, the kid's a baller, but hopefully that fuels the fire for him and he balls out and we just come home with a natty in a couple weeks. I'll take that over a Heisman. Any day.
Well, it appears the coaching carousel is starting to come to a close. I think the final big dominoes have dropped with Oregon and OU making their hires. OU hired Brent Venables, the longtime former OU assistant. In fact, we were kind of on that.
Yeah,
back when Riley first, not that it took a rocket scientist to figure it out, but back when Lincoln Riley first, the news broke on our podcast, like while we're in the middle of talking about it. Venables was one of the top names we were mentioning. And then, of course, Oregon hiring. The news has broke that they're going to bring Dan Lanning, defensive coordinator of Georgia, which I wonder how does that impact Georgia's, bowl prep. But he will be taking over that job. And then some of the mid-tier Power 5, like Virginia, they hired Tony Elliott.
Yep. That was really big.
The thing with Clemson, particularly offensive assistants, obviously Venables will be the first defensive assistant because he's been the coordinator there for the last decade. But I've asked this before on this podcast, like find me a Clemson offensive coordinator turned head coach who was successful. Find me one.
Yeah.
And then I wonder what's Dabo going to do with those 2 spots? It feels to me like Clemson might be at a crossroads. Where it was looking like they were getting ready to maybe take over Bama as the team, the program, especially after that year, a few years ago when they put it on them in the national championship.
Yep.
And now it seems, okay, maybe not having Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson
shows you how good those guys really were for that program.
Yeah.
But to your point about the bro prep, if we're going back to Georgia losing their DC, he is coaching in the playoffs. So
I know, but he's a head coach now.
Yeah.
Like it's what I mean by that is I know he's on paper doing everything he's supposed to be doing, but you're telling me while he's watching film, he's not thinking about Oregon. He's not thinking about recruits. He's not thinking about
he has to salvage
his own philosophy and all of. I mean, and everyone's going to say the right thing. Oh, no, I'm 100% focused on winning a national championship. But now the benefit to that is that Kirby's a defensive guy.
And you got to remember they have Muschamp there, too. Muschamp is a freaking defensive genius. He's a terrible head coach. But defensively, the guy's a beast.
Defensively, you can't.
So that's why I don't think they'll have too bad of a drop-off because you got a guy, Muschamp, who's an experienced DC in big games.
Yes.
They got whoever the young guy is. I forget his name. They got the young guy they've been kind of grooming and bringing up alongside of him who's going to be the co-DC with Muss.
Is it Trey Scott?
It's not. I can't think of his name.
Okay.
But there's a younger guy, that they're bringing up who Kirby has already said is going to co-DC with Muss next year. So that's why I'm still like, he's there, but even if I'm sure Muss is enough of an OG to be like, hey, like, do what you need to do. I've been a head coach. I get it.
Right.
Like, whatever you need to do, I can fill in off the back end because I've coached in big time games as a DC. It sounds like Kirby kind of already knew this was happening and was preparing it because he already had the DCs in place of what he was going to do. Like, the moment the news broke, he made the switch. This is what we're going to do next season. No need to worry about who we're hiring. We're going to promote Muss and this young guy who we're preparing as co-DCs. They'll do this together, which is, it's like an intern, essentially. Hey, you're going to sit up under Will Muschamp, who's probably one of the better DCs we've seen over the last decade or so. And we'll allow my man to finish coaching. But that's why I'm like, because Darren Prince is like, oh, my God, we're screwed. And I thought about it yesterday. I was like, not really. Like, Muss is he's a good DC. He's been in big games before. I think the thing about Tony Elliott, I'm going to support him, head coaching. This is why I was happy about Tony Elliott, because it was already said, insiders broke it. If Virginia didn't hire him, they were coming after Josh Gaddis, our OC at Michigan. He was like, they had already had conversations. They had pretty much told him, if Tony doesn't come, you're the next name. And so I was really praying Tony Elliott was going to sign that contract, because last thing Michigan needed to do was get rid of our OC, who has been on fire the back half of the season going into our first playoff game. So I'm thankful for Tony Elliott. I hope he does well. I think Virginia's a good program. I think, if you win 7-8 ball games, go bowling every year, he'll get a shot at maybe a bigger name or bigger program eventually. But I don't know what Dabo does, man. I'm with you. I'm questioning how good are they, based upon they've had two generationally talented, once-in-a-generation type of guys at quarterback. You went from Deshaun, I believe. I don't know who was in the middle of that. There's like a little brief time without Deshaun, but then you go Trevor Lawrence, who might arguably go down as one of the best freshman quarterbacks to ever play college football. I mean, the dude was like, he was a god when he came to Clemson. So, and then you got 3 years of that. So,
yeah, it was only one gap year, and it was when they had Kelly Bryant.
Okay, there it was.
That year.
There it was.
And then Lawrence came in as a true freshman and ended up taking his job like a few games into the season. But that team with Kelly Bryant made it to the CFP. They just got handled by Bama,
right?
Because they were, their defense had carried them all season, and then I'm wondering too. Does like what's Dan Mullen doing right now? I mean, is that someone maybe on Dabo's radar to bring in, or he's going to bring in quality coordinators, but gosh, losing Venables, like someone he's had to anchor that defensive side for the last decade. And then does Dabo start looking at, okay, what are my options now? I mean, does he start to maybe consider the NFL? Does he, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I think he's a guy that could do well. He's a culture guy, but I'm just thankful. You don't think he'd do well in the NFL?
No, I think guys like Dabo thrive in college because they're the head honcho. You got, you get to. I said this on Wax early on when we first recorded about Dabo, when we start talking about the pitfall of Clemson. Some of the stuff that he's got away with saying, he can get away with saying and doing because it's college.
They're kids.
They're kids. You can't go into that's what we're seeing with Urban Meyer right now. You can't go into a grown man's locker room saying that stuff, whatever you said politically, and expect these dudes to really be like wanting to play for you. It's just not. I think he does well at Clemson because it's college still. It's still kids, and you still have full autonomy. And guys like, I think this is Urban's problem. I think this is a guy like Dabo's problem. I think it's partially, well, I've heard good things about Saban in the NFL from players. Like, a lot of players say he's the smartest X's and O's guy, but they said he had the same problem. Like, you just can't talk to people that way. Like, I'm a grown man with kids. I think guys like that, it's almost like a dictatorship. It's my way or the highway. You get away with that in college. You can do that in college. You can't do that in the NFL. Because Dabo literally said, I forget what he was talking about, but he was like, if you don't like what I just said about this, you don't like this, there's the transfer portal. You can go. You can't pull that in the NFL. A guy would be like, all right. Like, because as long as I put on good tape, somebody else is going to sign me. In college, you can get away with that because the kid has no leverage. So
yeah, see, Dabo has just kind of always struck me as he's the dictator, like you're saying, but he's kind of the good old boy, like likable dictator to an extent. Now, I get what you're saying with some of his things that he says that could be kind of considered quote unquote out of pocket or whatever, but I don't know why, but I've kind of always likened Dabo.
Oh, really?
No, I'm saying likened him.
Oh,
like
okay.
I've always kind of compared him to Jimmy Johnson, just from a standpoint of, and what I mean is like where Dabo's at with Clemson and kind of where Jimmy was with Miami. Because when Jerry Jones hired Jimmy to the Cowboys, everybody thought he was stupid.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
People weren't. I mean, he just fired the legend Tom Landry. Oh, you're hiring your old drinking buddy from college to come coach the Cowboys? Oh, let's see how this goes. And then he goes 1-15 in his first year. I just think where Dabo's at age-wise, but granted, it was a different time then.
Different era.
Jimmy could go build those teams through the draft and didn't have to worry about losing all those guys. And then obviously all the drama that happened with Jimmy and Jerry. But so I don't know if Dabo is as good of a talent evaluator as Jimmy Johnson proved to be as an NFL coach. But what I mean from sort of his charisma, how dynamic he is, like Jimmy was always this big charismatic, dynamic leader, but like you always knew wherever Jimmy was, he was in control.
Right.
Even the Miami guys on those 80s teams that were wild.
Right.
They say it. They go, "Oh no.
Jimmy was
in control."
Right.
They said you were doing one of two things. You were doing what Jimmy told you to do, or you were doing what Jimmy allowed you to do. Like there was no question about it. Now, when Dennis Erickson came in, he was the big, everybody loved players coach. And then it was towards the end of his era was when their dominance kind of started to fade out. So it might be a bad comparison, but just for those specific reasons.
I think it's just different though for Jimmy, man. Jimmy has a different swagger. Like if Jimmy, this is why I think I understand the comparison. I understand the comparison for sure. I can see where you get that. This is where I think it's a little different. Where Jimmy was able to be charismatic and where he was able to pull it off versus Dabo. Dabo's he's in the Carolinas. Jimmy did that in Miami with flashy, young, hot shot kids, a lot of egos, like he was able to. Those Miami guys had a different dog in them than the guy that's going to Clemson right now. Those guys going to the U back then, that's a different kind of kid. And Jimmy was able to, hey, this is my way or the highway, but I still love you. Like I got your back. Versus, I might just be a Dabo hater. I might be a Dabo hater. It's something about Dabo gives me this vibe. He gives me used car salesman vibe. Jimmy gives me vibe of like that's my Aunt Tammy's cool husband, the white guy that she married. Like that's who Jimmy gives me. Jimmy's like Jimmy's the guy where you're like, oh, yo, Uncle White is like, oh man, white man, that's Uncle Jimmy. What's up, Jimmy? You're like, and he doesn't try to be anything he's not. He's just Uncle Jimmy. Like that's Jimmy Johnson gives me that's my uncle vibe. Dabo gives me the vibe like this is a transaction and you're trying to sell me on some stuff. But if I can benefit out of it, I'll deal with you.
Here's what I'm going to tell you, though. And I'm putting this on the screen. All right, free promotion.
Yes.
This book right here, you really get a feel for, like, you see the clip, how about them Cowboys? And everybody goes crazy. Dude, most of those players were scared of Jimmy, hated Jimmy, but they knew that what he was requiring them to do is what would ultimately get them to where they wanted to be. They hated how he showed favoritism. They hate, and I'm talking some of like the guys on the roster, not the Michael Irvins and the Emmitt Smiths and the Troy Aikmans. Troy Aikman loved Jimmy because he held everybody accountable. Right. And so then Aikman was like, okay, I don't have to do it. That's what the falling out with Switzer happened. Switzer came in and it was just like a free for all. Aikman's having to hold everybody accountable and it was draining him. But it just kind of, some of the things that like are unlikable about to me, the difference is, and this is what does wear me out a little bit about Dabo, is Dabo's a little more all shucks. Yes. He's a little bit more of an all shucks kind of guy. Jimmy was never an all shucks kind of guy. Jimmy was a straight shooter 100% of the time. So that's that is a significant difference. I'm just looking at where they're at and where Dabo's at in his career compared to where Jimmy was at in his career at that time. And if there was ever a moment for him to go to an NFL organization, hire some good coordinators, have some good drafts, he could bring that element of charisma and dynamic that, some NFL organizations right now need.
That's true.
But we'll see. I'm with you, though. I don't think the whole all shucks thing lasts in the NFL because they'll see right through that.
Man.
But I also wonder how much of that is him just doing that for the media or whatever. Man, I don't know how we
got
spinned out on that. But I guess the only other coaching carousel, I'm looking at the notes. Jeff Lebby, I think it's official. OC headed to OU.
It's official.
And then I think from my thought as a Razorback fan, I'm loving how this whole coaching carousel panned out because I haven't really heard either of our coordinators, Barry Odom or Kendall Briles, really being brought up as candidates for anywhere else, whether that be a coordinator or a head coaching job. And you had some big jobs open, but they all kind of filled. The greatest hire that I think could end up impacting the Razorbacks positively is LSU hiring Brian Kelly, because those kids, a couple of their big time guys are hitting the transfer portal, and it's guys that Arkansas was in the final running for them coming out of high school. In fact, this past weekend, is it Landon Jones, the defensive end from Texarkana, who is a true freshman at LSU? He was a 5-star, one of the top recruits in the country. I might have the last name wrong. I will look it up while I'm talking about it, but I think Landon Jones, he's in Fayetteville.
Oh, awesome.
So is it let me make sure to get the last name right. It's not Jones. I'll find it though. Jackson.
Okay.
Landon Jackson. Yeah. So he's a edge rusher, 6'7", 273. Hit the portal, played at LSU. And I don't know if that happens if they hired someone else.
Right. I don't either. Well, another big one that I think kind of going under the radar is Ohio State brought in Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State to be their new DC.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you what that hire was about. That hire was Ryan Day got his butt whooped in Ann Arbor and got it ran down his throat, and his defense played with zero toughness. And he's realized real quick, we better shore this up, because I'm not saying we're going to do this again next year, but it seems like Harbaugh has found his identity again. It seems like Harbaugh has found, this is who I am. This is how I've always won. I've ran the football. I've got creative on how we ran the football. And then I kind of kill you over top. But it's the rena, and I hate to keep harping on Michigan, but we're just a good team this year. It seems like this is the renaissance of Jim Harbaugh discovering himself. And I know that hire right there for Ohio State, that was a Michigan hire. That was, I can blow every team out on my schedule. I can outthrow them, and I'm going to win 11 out of 12 games every year off my offense. I can win 11 out of 12 games. The last game of the year, if this is what Jim is getting back to, because if you look back in 2016, that's how we almost beat them last time. We ran the freaking football.
Yeah.
And now that you have competent quarterback play and Cade McNamara, you got J.J. McCarthy, we got another big-time guy coming in. That was a hire for the game, because Oklahoma State had one of the better defenses in the country. They were tough. They were disciplined. Yeah. They were grinded out. They came and hit. That's what that hire was all. That hire right there was for the game, because Ryan Day knows this much. Ohio State isn't as patient as Michigan. If Michigan comes in next year and goes to the shoe and does that again, he is on thin ice. He's on thin. I'm going to say this early, and we can revisit this next year. So I'm going to bookmark this. If Ohio State, I don't care if they lose to Michigan again next year, Ryan Day might not make it out of that offseason.
I could see
he might not make it out of that. John Cooper, who's a great coach, got fired because he couldn't beat Michigan. And I think from what I've been hearing, the rumblings of this, and I said it early this season, man, I'm a guru. I'm a guru now. I'm going to say it. I said it early this season. This was his first year without Urban's guys. Yeah. Could he do it without Urban's boys? Can he do it without Urban's?
Said that early.
And they looked okay. I mean, they're prolific offense. But I kept saying they weren't tough. And Jim Harbaugh, I'm not saying Michigan's going to do this year in and year out where we're going to just run through teams. But we're going to be, if this is what he's getting back to, and it looks like the offensive staff is in place, because we'll lose Gaddis next year. We're going to lose him. But he already has Mike Hart there. He has Sharoni Moore, who's a nice up-and-coming guy. They have co-OC titles. So Jim knows. These are guys who believe in his fundamentals of we're going to run the football.
Right.
Yeah, that was a Michigan hire. That's why Ohio State hired him. So,
well, looking ahead to next year, you mentioned about next year. I'm gonna say something. I meant to say this earlier. B. Holmes, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out there in faith. We will be at the Army-Navy game next year.
Oh yeah, we'll do it. We'll be in Philly,
and we'll have a setup. We'll have a Blue Bloods CGT setup. It's going to be great. We might have a couple of those options happening next year. And then the other thing I wanted to say for the people that aren't watching, that you're just listening, the book I held up a second ago when we got into our rabbit trail about Dabo Swinney and Jimmy Johnson is called Boys Will Be Boys. If you're a Cowboy fan, great read, easy read, very insightful read. But that's the book I was referencing.
Yeah.
I just realized I held it up to the screen.
Never told them.
But we got a lot of people that just listen. They're like, what book is he talking about?
Yeah.
That's the book I'm talking about. And I guess, B. Holmes, man, last couple minutes here, do you have any nuggets for early signing day?
I think
vastly approaching.
Yeah, I think this is a big thing for early signing day. If there's any program who's hinging on this week for early signing day, and they're not, most people nationally probably aren't talking about them, is Texas Tech. If they land Quinn Ewers, this early signing period is huge for them, because Quinn, everybody knows he reclassified, so he went to school this year instead of going into school next year. Well, he would have been, and so still was a freshman because he didn't play in more than 4 games, so he still retains his freshman eligibility. But if he goes to Texas Tech, he now gets a leg up on some of these these kids who haven't signed yet, who would probably maybe sign early. But if he goes to Texas Tech, I guarantee you a bunch of top recruits who are receivers, or they don't sign. I think they reevaluate thinking about going to Tech, especially these Texas boys. Because I think McGuire, man, that's a home run in my opinion. I might be wrong when we look back at this. I think he's a home run hire for Texas Tech. Home run hire. Like you said, he coached at Cedar Hill when we talked about this originally, which is a powerhouse program in Texas, in the highest ranking of Texas high school football. He's a big reason why Quinn might be coming there, because me and you were texting about it. He's probably going to hire Riley Dodge, who was one of Quinn's coach in high school. But because of his connection to all these high school football coaches, and it's a fraternity of high school football coaches, he's going to be able to get in a lot of these living rooms and be able to say, hey, I know what you're going through. I know what's going on. I'm going to take care of you. And if he lands Quinn Ewers this week, that is going to boost Texas Tech. I'm going to venture and say this. If Quinn goes to Tech, Texas Tech will probably finish after signing day with a top 30 class. A lot of guys are going to read, because you got to look at a guy like Zach Evans from TCU. He's in the portal now. He might be interested to go. He knows Quinn. He knows Quinn. Like, a lot of these guys in Texas know Quinn. And, I mean, on top of that, they brought in the OC, I forget his name, Kittle, I think, from Western Kentucky. They're bringing the air raid back to Lubbock. I mean, that's where it should be. They're bringing it. So these, you're going to play with who was the consensus #1 overall recruit if he would have stayed this year.
Yeah.
One of the highest, I think he had the highest rating of a recruit. And you can come play with this kid, and you're going to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. I think so he wouldn't technically be a part of the early signing period of this class, but him signing with Tech this week changes the trajectory of their program. I think everybody else is kind of at where they're at. I mean, we'll see what my man who just got hired at Oregon, if he can kind of keep that class, but they've had a ton of decommitments. Cristobal, like, he's a major recruiter. So I think you're seeing like a lot of these big time names are going to kind of wait till February to kind of make their decision to let some things settle. But I think it's big for Tech this week, if there's anybody.
Oh, well, and imagine Quinn Ewers. I mean, I'm just thinking too, like you've already said, he was, before he sort of foregone.
Yeah,
before he chose to forego his senior year and reclassify, he was the #1 overall recruit. So now that's Tech essentially landing the #1 overall recruit for the 21 class, but spent their 2020 season not playing in a high school program, playing in a Big Ten powerhouse blue blood program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
it's a good trade-off.
You talk about program changing. I don't really have anything on early signing day other than I hope that the NCAA takes a good hard look at how it impacts these coaching hires and how these coaching hires impact these bowl games. And then you have the opt-outs. Like, if you don't want these bowl games to just be completely watered down by coaches not coaching and players not playing, like, let's look at the timeline of some of this stuff.
I agree.
That's my only thing right now. I mean, I'm not going to get on a tangent about it, but that's all I have on that.
I agree. There should be a team.
Otherwise, man, something. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing they could probably look at the NFL and model something after, right? Like, those guys, there's specific rules if they're in playoff runs, if they're, have postseason games and things of that nature. But let's see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. That's all I got, man. We're at an hour, so
I thought
B. Holmes.
Yeah, I thought we did a 30-minute episode. Somehow we went on a Dabo rant, and it turned into an hour. Clearly, I love Dabo Swinney so much. But, man, we just thank you guys, man. Thank you guys for your support. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube if you've listened this far. Our YouTube, we're building it brick by brick. This is truly a podcast for the fans, by the fans. As we always shout some of you fans out that engage with us, man. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at It's Trey Smith for Trey, at Real B Holmes for me, man. We love engaging with you guys. It makes it fun. Even you Bama fans, I love getting your soliloquies on my YouTube videos, like your sermons, your doctoral papers, all the stuff you dissertations, everything that you give me about how wrong I am. I love it. It makes it fun. This is why we do what we do. Did you drop about the bowl pick'ems? Did we talk about that?
No, I don't think so. If I did, it was an hour ago, so we can say it. We could say it again. Bowl pick'ems. It's on socials. I just put it up on Sunday. I put it up on my personal Twitter at It's Trey Smith, but it's also on Facebook. If you're watching the video, it's right there down in the links below. It's our bowl pick'em. It's free. Everyone does one, so just enter yours in ours. We want to see, how big of a competition we could get going, and the first place winner might have a nice little surprise coming their way.
Yeah, man. So make sure you guys sign up for that. I'm going to text everybody in my phone that I know loves college football anyways and make them do it anyways. So, hey, man, we love you guys. I would say resting your laurels, but no one lost this week unless you're an Army fan. So, get prepared for the offseason. Some of you guys got some big bowl games. Man, enjoy it. And we're going to continue this thing on. Make sure you stay in tune, man. College basketball season is live in effect.
It sure is.
Trey is pumped about that. I'm not as pumped because my team doesn't look as good, but it's okay. We'll figure it out, man. Juwan Howard's the man. But, hey, man, we love you guys. Thank you guys for supporting us always. And until next time, have a great week. Peace.